perfect reading comprehension, which was very close to CAT. So I'll not say it was equally difficult, but it was quite difficult. A few of the questions are really difficult. So the most time-consuming part in this language skills section would be these 8 to 10 RC questions. So what you can probably do while tackling this language skills section is that you can leave these RC questions for the end. I don't know, everybody has a different strategy with which the person goes in the English section, but this is the topic which may force you to leave a few questions in the end, which will be criminal. For example, if you talk about, let's say, these fill in the blank questions, which were around 5 to 7 in numbers, they were I'll say very simple. They were very simple. They were pretty simple, and I think these are the 5 to 7 questions which are there for the taking. So two things in the paper that should definitely attempt are fill in the blanks, which will have some 5 to 7 questions, and sentence correction, which will again be 5 to 7 questions. So the good thing about these fill in the blanks and sentence correction questions is that they will be around 12 to 13 in number if you add these two, and they can be done in what? I'll say 5 minutes flat, right? With a very good accuracy. The sentence correction questions were pretty simple. They just had 4 parts in the sentence, and you had to identify which part of the sentence is an error, or the fifth option was if the sentence is absolutely correct and there is no error in the sentence. So they could be done, each of the questions, in some 15 to 20 seconds. So at the most, doing these fill in the blanks and sentence correction sections, you'll take 5 to 6 minutes. Definitely not more than that. Right? So you should make sure that it not happen that at the end of those 22 minutes you are stuck at question number 28, and the last 4 questions in your section are those sitters, the fill in the blanks. Right? So just make sure, since you know the breakup beforehand, that fill in the blanks and sentence correction questions are to be done. They are to be done at any cost. Even if you have to scroll the entire thing first and find where those questions are done, I'll still recommend doing those questions. These are most scoring questions. You can easily get 10 correct out of 12. Right. So after this, I'll probably say, I'll not call them simple, but if you look at antonyms, synonyms, and analogies, this part of the paper, these two. So if you look at antonyms, synonyms, and analogy, these are vocab-based questions. So some 5 to 6 questions on antonyms, synonyms are coming in every slot, and 2 or 3 questions on analogies. So this would be roughly around 8-9 questions based on vocab and nothing else. I'll not say that these questions are simple, but the good thing about simple and straightforward vocab questions like what is the synonym of X and followed by 4 options, the good thing is that either you know the answer or you don't know the answer. If it's a contextual usage, then you'll probably try to figure out what the answer is. But in these questions, since there is nothing that can be done, if you either know the word or you don't know the word, so you'll not waste any time. So again, I'll say that these 7, 8, 9 questions can be done in 2-3 minutes, 4 minutes at the max. So if we add these 3-4 minutes to the 5-6 minutes that we had given to fill in the blanks and grammar questions earlier, the sentence correction questions earlier, I'll say that these 20 questions in the paper, sentence correction, fill in the blanks, antonyms, synonyms, and analogies, can be done in around 10 minutes. Right? So how many questions we have done? So we have done around 20 questions in around 10 minutes. So we are left with around 12 questions and with around 12 minutes, because these parajumbles and RC questions are going to take some time. So just make sure that you have this breakup in your mind when you go to the examination hall, and you should balance your time accordingly. Look, it could not work like this. If it's let's say 32 questions and 22 minutes, so at the end of let's say the first 11 minutes, if you are at question number 16, then you are on track. ऐसा भी हो सकता है ना that all the reading comprehension questions, all the reading comprehension passages in your section appear towards the end. So just keep this in mind. RC plus parajumbles should be roughly half the time, which would comprise some 10, 12 or 13 questions, and antonyms, synonyms, and analogies. You can say the vocab-based questions and the fill in the blanks and sentence correction questions the rest of the time. The difference would be that this second half, the latter half, would comprise around 20 questions out of those 32 questions. So if you want to score well in the LR section, just make sure that you do not leave any of those 20 questions unattempted. Unattempted means the serious attempt. So just make sure that you spend some time on each of these 20 questions. I would not mind even if you leave one of the RC passages. the one which you think is difficult. Fine, but do not leave any of these 20 questions in the paper. And I'll say that this is the key to scoring well in this paper. Parajumbles are, I'll say not, they're not very difficult. Some are 4 sentence type, some are 5 sentence type. They'll not be as difficult as you see in CAT, but still they take some time because you have to read that whole thing. Right? So if you look at this, I'll say that the breakup should be Parajumbles and RC half the time, and the rest of the paper half the time. Right? The later half to be done first, if you can manage it. So just make sure that you have this breakup in mind while attempting the exam. We'll move to the next section now. Okay, this is basically the order in which I attempted the paper. So did LS first, then quantitative skills, and then logical reasoning. So I've put in the slide like this. The breakup of the quantitative skills was roughly like this. Arithmetic was some 10-15 questions. Algebra again some 8, 10, 12 questions from algebra. So almost half the thing was from arithmetic algebra in this section, if I talk about the state. And very few questions from number system, 1 or 2 questions based on calculations, simple calculations, just I think 1 or 2 questions from geometry, and 1 or 2 questions from PNC. It had some, not more at least, I think 3 DI sets, having some 4 to 5 questions each. So in all there were around 15 questions of DI and some 5-6 questions on DS. I'll say that the key to doing well in this section is attempting all the arithmetic questions. They are simple. They're not very difficult. In fact, if you look at this section, you'll rarely find a difficult question. Probably if you look at the quantitative aptitude section, we'll divide the section in 2 parts. DI and DS would be one part, and quantitative aptitude would be the other part. So quantitative aptitude would have around 30 questions. I think most of these questions would be doable. You'll find some 3 or 4 questions in the section which you will be able, which you will not be able to do in in a minute. Right? So you have to make sure that you're not stuck on these tedious questions and you move forward. And if you are left with time in the end, you can always come back to them. But you're not stuck on any question which you think will take more than a minute. But most of the questions, around 18-20 questions out of these 30 questions in quantitative aptitude would definitely not take more than a minute. The difficult part in this paper is the data interpretation section. Data interpretation, I'll say questions. There will be some 3-4 sets of data, and you would be hoping for an easier set for these 60 minutes. You would not find an easier set in this section. All the questions of data interpretation, at least in my slot, were very, very calculation intensive, had really, really close choices. So the choices were like 110, 112, 108, 114. 1-2% की variation के साथ में there were choices. So approximating with those choices was really difficult. It was really difficult. So it involved what I actually don't like people to do in an examination. It involved a lot of drudgery. You had to calculate those things like 125 into 317 divided by 172 to the if not to the first place of decimal, at least to the closest number. Right. So it will take some time. So the DI questions are not very simple in this paper. So my advice would be that you try to score in the quantitative skills section by doing well in quantitative aptitude. Right. So these are the questions. These are the questions where you can score in this paper. If you look at DI would be very, very calculation intensive. So just make sure that you zero in on all those questions in DI which you think you'll be able to do without with some approximation. There were questions in which you could apply some approximation, but at least half the questions were such that you have to calculate all the way. So try and identify all those questions in which you think you would have to devote a lot of time to arrive at the correct answer, and just leave those questions for the end or leave them altogether. A good attempt in this quantitative skills section would be I think around 30 to 35. 35 would be a very decent attempt, and if you do it with an accuracy of 85 to 90%, I don't think you'll be missing the cutoff in this section. If if somebody can cross 35 with a good accuracy, that'll be an excellent attempt in this section. DS questions were, I would say, somewhere between DI and quantitative aptitude section. So DI were the toughest, DI questions were the toughest, DS would come next, and then would come the quantitative aptitude section. Score in this section using the quantitative aptitude questions. Try and leave all the tougher DI questions for the end. Alright, we'll move to the next section now. The last section for me at least was logical reasoning. So logical reasoning had some 20 to 25 questions on mathematical reasoning and 10 to 15 questions on verbal reasoning. This has been the pattern in all the slots which has happened till date. The verbal reasoning questions in this section are not too time consuming. But the problem with the verbal reasoning questions in the section is that many of the questions are very vague, very vague. So, those course of action questions, you'll get the feeling that ye bhi theek hai, this can also be done. So, what do you do in these course of action questions? You generally go by elimination. You'll say, no, this is definitely not recommended. This cannot be recommended. But you will still be left with 2-3 choices and look equally close. Plus, they'll give you options like 1 and 2, 2 and 3. So, this in combination with this can be done, or option 2 along with option 3 is the correct answer, things like that. So it's actually quite vague at places. Same is the case with strong and weak arguments. They'll give you 2 arguments to say 1 is weak, 2 is strong, 2 is weak, 1 is strong, both are strong, both are weak, things like that. So again, a lot of ambiguity in some of these questions. Same was the case with statement conclusion. So verbal reasoning, I would say, was not tough like that. It could be done very quickly. In fact, these 10-15 questions definitely should not take more than 10-12 minutes. But you'll not have this satisfaction in the end that you have done those 15 questions and get 12 correct. And so which is very important for you to have in an exam. That okay, I've done 40 questions, I'll definitely get 35 correct. So which could definitely not be possible with these verbal reasoning questions, at least in this section. If you come to mathematical reasoning, so it had all kinds of questions about all kinds of questions. It had calendars. I don't have a calendar question, but people have reported calendar questions. Arrangement, distribution, comparison, blood relation, coding, decoding, those grid-based questions, number series, letter series, some miscellaneous puzzles. But the best part of these mathematical reasoning questions were some 10 or 12 questions based on LR. And so just make sure that you are able to identify these LR questions. LR questions. This section is called LR, in fact. LR questions, by LR questions, what I mean is those arrangement problems. The questions like, there were 4 friends who had 4 different hobbies and they were from 4 different cities and used to play 4 different sports, things like that. And so, I had, I think, around 3 of those sets, 3 or 4 of those, I don't remember, at least 12-13 questions based on logical reasoning, those arrangement problems. Now, these are I think the most scoring, most concrete questions in the section. These are the questions in which if you just make the table once, there's no way in the world that you'll get the question incorrect, if you've obviously made it correctly. The problem with coding, decoding and, distribution and, letter and number series is that you don't know how much time it's going to take. It's generally done by hit and trial. And, but LR is something the NMAT 2013, can type the question in the chat window, and then I'll accordingly start answering the questions over voice. No, Rajguru, there is no negative marking in the paper. Okay, possible cutoffs. I'll not talk about possible cut. Look, NMAT gives you scale scores, so you cannot relate this with that. But I think the attempts that I told you just now told you, an attempt of around 25 out of 40, and in quantitative aptitude, an attempt of around 30 to 35 out of 48, you will definitely be able to clear the cutoffs. Your accuracy obviously has to be, if not wonderful, it has to be at least decent, and if you want to clear the cutoffs using these scores. I think I don't think there's any strict pattern regarding the easier questions appearing towards the end of the section. So you cannot predict, or you cannot go there with this in mind that the easier questions appear towards the end of the section. But yeah, people have reported that the easiest questions appeared. There are not too many questions on clocks and calendars. I don't think I had any question on clocks and calendars. But yeah, people have reported one or two questions for that. Nitish, in the logical reasoning section, I would definitely want you guys to do LR questions first. But my only problem with you attempting LR questions first is that you would try tracking the LR questions out of those, that group of 40 questions. So that would result in some serious waste of time. So I would not advise doing all those 10, 12, 13 LR questions first. What I would just advise you to do is just make sure that you have this in mind, that there are some 12, 13 LR questions, those easier, those concrete questions hidden somewhere. So at the end of those that sectional time limit, at the end of those 38 minutes, you should not end up not doing one of those sections. And just keep this in mind. Don't try and find those LR questions from those 40 questions and do those first. Not necessarily. Strategy for attempting quant section, I told you, there'll be some 5-6 questions in quant out of 30, 32, it will be difficult. So don't get stuck on these questions. Rest will be very, very simple. So I'll say out of 30, there'll be some 10, 15 which could be done in what? Around 30 seconds. And some 8 to 10 questions, it will take 1.5 minutes, and the rest will be tedious. So just make sure that it's this in mind, that you don't have to touch those tedious ones. Swati, expected overall cutoff, I told you the breakup, 25 in English, around again 25 in logical reasoning and 30 to 35 in quant. If you do this, you'll be able to clear the sectional cutoff as well as the overall cutoff. In NMAT, you don't get a break after the section. So the moment one section finishes, the second section would open up. In fact, the screen is also slightly deceptive in the sense that, let's say you start with English. So once the English section ends, the next screen would not show you the first question of the next section. It'll say to start the quantitative aptitude section, press next, something like that. So you would think, or you might think that the timer has not started, but then you would suddenly realize, in fact you'll be shocked to know that the timer has already started. So irrespective of whether you have clicked on that next button or not, the timer has already started. So ideally it should be the next question first, but they'll show you the screen which says next. This is actually stupid. So if they are asking for a next, the timer should start only after you have clicked on next, but the timer starts immediately after this. So just make sure you don't waste those crucial 15-20 seconds there. Yeah, there are different cutoffs for different sections. Yeah. These are algebra questions are mostly simple, very simple. So I cannot actually disclose what question types were there, but they were actually very, very simple questions. Algebra would not give you too many problems in this. Some based on functions, some on number series and all. I'll show you this breakup. Yeah. So the questions in algebra were on polynomials, maximum, minimum, inequality, AP, JP. It was a mixed bag. So, but they were not really tough. Some of the NMAT mocks in the SIS are very similar to the actual paper. It'll be very similar because all the slots are also different. So my paper would be different from yours. Yours would be different from your French, and so the marks are almost there. So you can assume that the difficulty of the test is almost similar to the actual NMAT. AP-GP questions were not very calculation intensive. In fact, simple calculations were there. Very simple calculations. Rajan, questions repeating, if you're not sure, in fact, I would also advise not trying to find out if the questions are being repeated and similar stuff. Just concentrate on your studies. Not sure if the questions are being repeated. Level of set theory questions was very simple, very simple. In fact, you didn't even need to draw the Venn diagram. You can simply use that formula and find the answer. Very simple. No, Srijan, this is a very important point you're saying. Are the sets and LR shown together? I mean, do I get to see the total number of questions associated with the set? This is again something which is very, very irritating about this test. They give you so many irritating things. No? So, you'll see the root of the question on the left hand side of the screen and just one question on your right. And it will now tell you how many questions are associated with this set. So, it actually may have just 2 or 3 questions in the end. But the good thing is that I haven't seen a set which did not have at least 4 questions. So there were generally 4 or 5 questions in each set, but you cannot actually see the questions. For that, you'll have to scroll the root of the question first, the whole thing, then click on next, then next, then next, and then you'll be able to see how many questions are there in the set. Ashima, the cutoffs for other branches, the retail and banking and other such stuff would be slightly lower than the cutoff for the flagship program. Slightly lower than that. Arpit, NMAT is irritating. Look, you don't have a choice. So, though I find 2 or 3 things in the test interface very irritating, but you still have to manage with that. Yes, I guess there will be normalization in the test because all the slots are going to be different, but even they don't give you too many. They don't tell you too many things about using all those statistical tools to equate and normalize the score. So don't worry too much about things that are beyond your control. Can we come back to the review screen after going to an incomplete question through review screen? Yes. Once you have scrolled through, once you've gone through all the questions, that review button suddenly appears from somewhere, and then it's there. Till you end the section. Probability, I do not have any probability questions. If it appears in a slot, my assumption is that it's going to be very simple. So PNC and probability questions are not really a problem. They're very simple, even if they are pairing somewhere. Yes, you can mark questions, but they'll not be really useful because it's a speed test. So you'll not get much time to come back to those marked questions. In DI questions, data is there on the screen, but in those questions there are a lot of data. For example, one of the questions had a bar chart and then some pie chart was also there or something like that. And so you have to scroll button. You have to use the scroll button in order to have a look at the data, the whole thing at one go. So yeah, some questions were there in which the whole thing was not there on the screen all the time. The same was true for RC questions as well. No, I do not have any syllogisms, and I don't think syllogisms are there in the paper. They're coming in the paper. Advisable to randomly mark RC questions. Look, if you are not too much of an RC guy, I would not discourage you from doing that, because it may happen in the end that if you choose to skip the RC questions and go to the easier questions first, then you're not left with any time in the end to come back to the RC questions. So if you want to randomly mark an RC question and move forward, it can be done. You can always come back to it later on and change the answer. What will be my appropriate choice when an RC passage of 4 or 5 parajumble questions in the last 3-4 minutes? So that I'll definitely say that between an RC passage and 4 or 5 parajumble questions, if you're just left with 3-4 minutes, you should definitely go with parajumble questions. The reason is simple. You may not be able to attempt anything in the RC passage if it's a difficult passage. But with parajumbles, even if you're not able to attempt all 4 or 5, you would still be able to attempt some 2-3 questions out of those parajumbles. So if you're just left with 2-3-4 minutes, I would not want you to go to any of the questions that involves sets or group questions. So if it's an LR question or LR set, or if it's an RC question, it's not advisable to do these questions or start doing these questions in the last 2-3 minutes. Wrong questions would not make any difference to your answer, to your score. So there is no negative marking. Ashima, cutoffs, nobody can comment about the cutoffs because cutoffs are given. Look, we have the data about the cutoffs for last year, the year before that, but it will not tell you anything because they are scaled scores. So cutoffs can only be predicted in terms of the number of questions and your accuracy in the section. Sorry, I don't think accuracy plays any role in the normalization, so it will be your raw score and the difficulty level of the section. I think the scores will be normalized based on these two things only. So you get a, let's say, a raw score of 30 with X correct and Y incorrect, and somebody else with a a 2X correct and a some Z incorrect with the same raw score in the same slot, I think would end up with the same field score. And with the RC passages, I'll say the passages per se were not very difficult, but the questions are inferential. So since you would expect the lesser exams to have some direct, questions, so they were not there. So 2 or 3 of the questions were direct, but there were quite a few questions which asked you about what is the message of the author, what does the author want to say, and things like that. And so there were quite a few questions which were inferential in nature. Murad, you could definitely mark all the unattempted questions at the end randomly. Just make sure that you mark everything. Abhishek, I think I made this clear. If someone attempts 100 questions and it's 90 correct, whereas some other person gets 90 correct attempting 120, it will not make any difference to the score because your marks are not being deducted for incorrect answers. And so it's just the number of correct answers that are counting. So if you get 90 correct and incorrect, it will be the same score as 90 correct and 13 correct. So I'll strongly recommend marking everything in the paper. Yes, Niyati, you have this button which says review incomplete. So this is the button that I think should ideally use in the last 1 minute. So just use this button, mark everything randomly, whatever is left in the section. FIJs, I don't think there are any FIJs are appeared in CAT and NMAT, at least this time. RC topics are, it's actually diversified. So there's no strict area from which the topics are coming. They're from everything. It's actually very diverse. Antonyms and synonyms depend on vocabulary, but they are not very simple. Definitely not very simple. A person with an average vocabulary probably would be able to do around half the questions. So if they're 8 or 9, you'll probably be able to do 3 or 4 easily, and some 4 or 5 would be tougher, slightly tougher. And this year's questions are a bit difficult than last year. It'll be difficult to comment. Probably yes. I don't think there's much difference in the difficulty level, but probably yes. Probably yes. But it will not make a difference in chances in the end. It's the relative score that's going to matter. So if it's tough for everybody. I had just 1 input-out question in my paper, so I don't think anybody is getting more than 1 or 2 input-out questions in the paper. Puzzle question is generally simple mental ability exercise kind of puzzles. Not too complicated, very simple to understand and do. Mohit, the approach in LR section, just read the question and do it. No, there were no para completion questions in language skills section. Okay, Harsh, you want to know the strategy for marking random answers. Okay, I mark C's as random answers, so it's probably different things which work for different people. So for you it may be all B's or all A's or probably A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D. There's no strategy as such for marking random answers. If you're talking about marking intelligent, educated guesses, then obviously if you're able to eliminate 2-3 options, then you'll go with the rest 2 options. But if in the end you are going to mark 10-15 questions in 1 minute, then there's no such strategy. Just pick one of the letters and mark it in all the answer options. No, Spandan, you cannot return to a particular section after you have gone to the next section. There's a strict sectional time limit. Okay, Bhavna, I'll keep moving the slides here. Fine. Yes, Rajan, there are 1 or 2 matrix questions in the LR section as well. They can be in the form of matrix or in the form of a circle or in the form of a number series. It's all the same. It's all pattern matching. If you can, you have to use just one word for these type of questions. And there are definitely some 5-7 questions of pattern matching in the section. It's a very, very intelligent question. He's saying you don't clear the cutoffs in a particular test in your probably first attempt, but clear the cutoffs in the second attempt. But the paper in which you clear the cutoffs, you score slightly lower than the paper in which you don't clear the cutoffs. So which score would be considered? So I'm not sure if I know the correct answer, but the reason says that it will be the score in which you have cleared the cutoff. So they say it's the better score which is considered. So the better score is the one in which you have cleared the cutoff. So I think it will be the better score in which you have cleared the cutoff. So this is very difficult to achieve. Don't try doing this in the actual examination. But if it happens, I think it is the score in which you have cleared all the sectional cutoffs. Amit, you can start VA section with doing FIBs and sentence correction, but then, as I already said, it will be difficult to find those 10-12 questions out of those 32 questions. So you'll waste some time in that. Just make sure that at the end of those 22 minutes, you have done all those FIBs and sentence correction. That is it. So don't necessarily have to start with FIBs and sentence correction. Chandni, there is no topic cutoff under one section. So there is just one sectional cutoff. There is no topic cutoff as such. Yeah, Ankit, you'll have to clear the sectionals as well as the overall cutoffs. Harshal, NMAT Mumbai HR program is good, but again, good and bad is subjective. So it depends on what you're comparing it with. So obviously it will not be good as compared to, if you compare it to something like Auxiliary PMIR, but as such the institute is good, the program is definitely worth taking. So you can think about it. No, Mohit, the critical reasoning questions are not very tough, but you'll find 2 or 3 questions will be slightly ambiguous in nature. Ankit, it's very difficult to to zero in the exact placement record of an institute because either they will not release it, at times they are rigged figures. So I think the best strategy would be to visit the campus and talk to the students. So if you're actually concerned about the exact package and such stuff. But yeah, the placements of NMIMS are definitely not bad. They'll be one of the top institutes in the country. Actually, the Bangalore and Hyderabad campuses would be good, but nowhere near compared to the Mumbai campus. So the campus that should look at is Mumbai. Ankit, SIBM and NMIMS would be roughly the same league. I think I'll rate SIBM slightly higher than NMIMS. Here it is, Ketan, the slide for the LR section. Harshal, I think if you this depends on what exactly you want to. So if you're talking about, let's say, TIS HRM and NMM's HR, I'll say definitely go to TIS. If you're talking about TIS labor relations on NM HR, I think I would still go with TIS. Shonit, if you've got a rank like 6,000, 7,000 CMAT, I'll advise to take the test again in February. Shekhar, they'll give you a situation and course to action questions and will say what is it that you are going to do in this situation. We'll give you a tricky situation and give you 3-4 options. Okay, this should be done, that should be done, this should be done. For example, they'll give you something like there's this village in which illiteracy is a major problem. So what would you do in this village? Would want to go for funding for schools or things like that. I hope you got the question right. Harshal 1824 in CMAT, I'm not sure if it's good enough for JB. I must take the test again. And this is going to go down in the consolidated list. Chandni, NM does not give you the ranks. It actually gives you the scaled scores and the percentage. .247 in CMAT, KG Samaya, I think you stand a chance. 247 would be a rank around 600, 700 in CMAT, but I'll still advise taking the test again because this rank might drop down substantially after people take the test in February. Since the best of the two scores to be considered, I think you should also try it once more. Arnab, MA and MBA are very, very different. They are very different, but the MA that you do in test is considered at par with an MBA by most of the corporates. So that way, it's not too much of a difference. They'll give an MA in HRM, MA in labor relations, but for all practical purposes, it's almost the same thing as doing an MBA in HR. So if you're doing an MA from test, you should not be too worried. You're doing an MBA only. Section again, I think this is the third or the fourth session, answer session. Tomorrow in the evening, I have not taken the tests yet. Students is visible, but the raw performance is not. So let's say you get 20 questions correct in quant. So by having a look at then somebody else was got a raw score of 100, and poorly then somebody with a better raw score. This is how it works. Last year, the system was not at all transparent. What we inferred from empirical data was easier to get through using the CMAT scores. Other than that, we're not in a position to comment because there's still a test to go, and I think the number of students are going to be surprised if it's 1 lakh or 2 lakhs or maybe even more. Rather, we want me to suggest a book for GK. Look, if you talk through the GK archives given by Karan Launcher in SIS, but if you talk about static GK, two good resources would be Manorama Yearbook, number one, and there's another book called Lucent's from which book? This is up to you. Manorama Yearbook and Lucent's General Knowledge. These are two good books for doing static GK. Rather, this book is called Lucent's General Knowledge. You'll just find one book by this name. Go and buy it. You'll find it easily in the market. Initial rank 158 in CMAT looks good, but again, since the best of the two scores to be considered, your rank might drop down substantially in the consolidated list. Right? So don't take any chances, take the test again. No, syllogisms have not been reported in any slot. Score at which not go for it again because the cutoffs and everything vary every year. But if you get somewhere around 97-98%, you don't need to go for another attempt. Since it's going to held in February, I think by around December it should be out. So, because the CMAT clearly says that it depends on the B school, how they want to use the score. So, maybe. Arnab, this is, if I give my NMAT on 6, will I be able to give it only once? 6th December, I think. Is it the last date? I'm not sure. Just go to their FAQs page and check this out. Rahul, about IFT, we cannot comment, but it's not using sectional cutoffs for around at least the last 2 years now. Manorama is very, very good for static GK. Rahul, it's not that IFT never tells us whether they're going to use sectional cutoffs or not. But yeah, it's slightly dicey with IFT. What I would advise in a case like this is that don't leave any section unattempted. So just do something in each of the sections, which you would anyway want to do if you want to score well in the test. Because IFT last year did not have sectional cutoffs, did not mention. The year before that did not have sectional cutoffs. There was 1 year in which they mentioned, but they did not have sectional cutoffs in the end. So it's slightly, slightly unpredictable in case of IFT. But if you don't leave any section blank and just do something the paper, I think you'll be relatively safe. But don't compromise, easier marks in a particular section for the heck of doing another section. Got the point, right? So just make sure to do something in the paper, something in each of the sections, even if it's some 5, 7, 8 questions. Actually, it's Lucent's General Knowledge. Simple Lucent's General Knowledge. This is the name of the book. Not Lucent's Objective General Knowledge. The name of the book is Lucent's General Knowledge. I don't know if there is a book called Lucent's Objective General Knowledge, but the book that I'm talking about is Lucent's General Knowledge. This is it. Ganesh will upload an IFT GK compendium in a question bank. I would advise doing it religiously, and so just make sure that you go through it. So there's still some time left for the exam. Go through it, through everything in there, and then if you want to talk about static GK, then you could do it from Manorama and Lucent. And for current affairs, just make sure that you keep yourself abreast with the latest affairs by going to the knowledge, the magazines and the newspapers, etc.